When you hear the word economics, you probably picture, confusing charts, big numbers, talking heads on the news. But what if I told you you've already been an economist, like a bunch of times, just today? We're going to break down what economics really is, and I'm going to show you that you're not just living in the economy, you're actually helping to build it every single day. Let's dive in. No, really, think about it for a sec. From the moment you woke up this morning, what have you actually done? Did you grab some breakfast, jump on the bus, fire off a quick text message? All of this might seem totally normal, totally mundane, but you're about to see how almost every single one of those little actions was an economic choice. Okay, so did you eat breakfast? That cereal or toast didn't just magically appear, right? It had to be grown, then processed, shipped to a store, and then finally purchased before it ever made it to your kitchen. That whole journey from a farm to your plate is a perfect little economic chain in action. Or maybe you took the bus this morning. That ticket you bought, that's not just a slip of paper. It was a straight-up economic transaction. You exchanged your money for a service, the service of getting you from point A to point B. Simple as that. Even sending a text message. Yep, that's economic activity too. You're using a massive telecommunications network, a service that someone, somewhere is paying for. See what I mean? From the second you woke up, you've been making economic moves without even realizing it.
So the takeaway here is you don't need some fancy degree to be a part of the economy. Your daily life is the economy. Every one of these small everyday actions is a piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. So now let's take a look at how all those pieces fit together.
At its very core, economic activity is just a fancy term for anything we do to, well, get stuff done. Whether it's to achieve a goal, finish a chore, or just make our lives a little more fun. Buying groceries to make dinner, that counts. Streaming a movie on a Friday night, that counts too. It's all part of it. But here's where it gets interesting. Economics isn't always about physically handing over cash. Think about walking through a public park. You don't pay an entry fee, right? But that park is definitely not free. It's paid for and maintained using tax money from everyone in the community. So it's still an economic transaction. The payment is just a little less obvious, kind of happening in the background. Okay, so if all of our daily actions are the fuel, how does the engine of the economy actually run? Well, it all boils down to a really simple but super powerful three-part cycle. Everything kicks off with production. This is just the creation of any good or any service. A great example is your school. It doesn't build cars or make phones, but it absolutely produces an incredibly valuable service, an education. Next up, you've got expenditure. That's really just the official word for spending money. So to get that service, the education, your family makes an expenditure. That could be direct, like paying school fees, or it could be indirect through the taxes that fund public schools. And finally, that expenditure becomes income for all the people involved in the production. The money from those fees and taxes pays for the school's buildings, its books, and of course, the salaries and wages for your teachers and all the staff. And there you have it, the economic cycle in a nutshell. A school produces an education, your family's expenditure pays for it, and that money becomes income for the teachers. Then what happens? Well, they take their income and make their own expenditures, which fuels someone else's production. It's this powerful, continuous loop that keeps the whole system humming along. All right, so now that we know what the engine looks like, let's talk about the two main ways economists look at it. You can either grab a magnifying glass and zoom way in, or you can step back and look at the whole big picture. Let's use unemployment as an example. If one person in one family loses their job, that's a huge personal problem for them, right? But when you hear on the news about the national unemployment rate going up, that's a problem for the whole country. How we look at these two different scales, well, that's the key difference between the two main branches of economics. On one side, we have microeconomics. Think of this like putting the economy under a microscope. It looks at the decisions and behaviors of individual people and individual companies. Questions like, why do you choose one smartphone brand over another? Then on the other side, we have macroeconomics. This is the wide-angle lens, the big picture view. It looks at huge economy-wide things like inflation, economic growth, and that national unemployment rate we just talked about. Basically, micro is the study of the individual trees, macro is the study of the entire forest. Now, this next idea is maybe one of the most important tools you can walk away with today. When you're listening to a politician or a journalist or anyone talking about the economy, how can you tell if what they're saying is a verifiable fact or if it's just their opinion? It all comes down to a really crucial distinction. On the one hand, you have positive economics. This is all about objective statements that can be tested with data to see if they're true or false. Things like, if the government raises taxes on soda, people will likely buy less soda. We can check that with data. But on the other hand, you have normative economics. This is all about opinions and values, what someone believes ought to be or what should happen. So a statement like, the government should tax soda to make people healthier, that's a normative statement. It's an opinion, a value judgment, not a testable fact. Let's try a few. Look at this first one. Spending on smartphones creates employment and generates income. Can we test that? Yeah, absolutely. We can look at the data from tech companies. So that's positive. Now, what about Australia's minimum wages are too high? That little phrase, too high, that's a value judgment. What's too high for one person is just right for another. That makes it normative. Same thing with an insufficient amount on defense. Insufficient according to who? That's an opinion. You see the difference? It's a game changer once you can spot it. So, we have covered a lot of ground here, from your breakfast this morning all the way to the health of the entire national economy. But why does any of this really matter? Well, because now you have a basic toolkit to understand the world around you in a totally new way. So here's what I want you to take away from all this. First, and most importantly, you are not a bystander. You are an active, crucial participant in the economy. Second, economics isn't some abstract subject. It's a practical framework for making sense of your daily life. Third, knowing how to separate a positive fact from a normative opinion is a superpower for being an informed citizen. And finally, you can now see the difference between a micro issue affecting one person and a macro issue affecting us all. So we'll leave you with this final thought. You've got the foundational tools now to look at the world a little bit differently. The next time you buy a cup of coffee, or you read a headline about inflation, or you hear a politician make some big promise, you can analyze it on a whole new level. So the only question left is, what economic questions are you going to start asking?